I built a 22-year-old boy on Instagram, and what I discovered unsettled me more than I expected. Basically, I made a fake Instagram account. I made him 22 years old. It didn't even ask me for my gender, so I'm not sure how it assumed I was a boy from maybe the picture that I input. I asked ChatGPT to make a racially ambiguous, whitish looking, maybe Spanish boy who was athletic. That was his profile picture, and that's it. I didn't follow anyone, I didn't comment, I didn't search anything intentionally. And I tried to keep my scrolling and stopping as evenly as possible to be as neutral as possible. Interestingly enough, it was initially populated with what would be considered boyish things: cars, sports, and lifestyle posts. How did it know I was a boy? I asked. Was it analyzing people's photos and deciding their gender based on that? But I kept my responses as calm and neutral as possible. And within 48 hours, Instagram decided who this young man was supposed to be. And it was scary. But we'll get into that in a little bit. You're listening to The Human OS, the place where we upgrade your internal operating system. I'm STORRY, a singer-songwriter, speaker, filmmaker, and anthropologist at heart, obsessed with how humans actually work. What surprised me most wasn't even the content itself, it was realizing how small my own bubble is. I genuinely believed that the kind of content I consumed was relatively mainstream. I mean, it feels normal to me, common sense. But this account showed me something else entirely. So the Instagram page had millions of followers, and it wasn't fringe in the sense of low engagement. It was massively popular. Much more popular than whatever I follow. It made me realize that we are not arguing inside one shared culture. We are living in completely different algorithmic realities. So the first 24 hours, as I said, were actually pretty neutral, even though they were heavily gendered. They weren't polarizing, at least. Sports, cars, gym transformations, high adrenaline, high testosterone energy. And honestly, that makes sense. If you're a 22-year-old guy, that's probably interesting. And even some of it was interesting to me too. But by day 2, the shift was obvious. Women weren't women anymore. They were bodies, lips, breasts, OnlyFans creators. And the comments were worse than the posts. Women were either the punchline of a joke or framed as manipulative, shallow, or transactional, even though the engagement and desire was viral. Then the ideology started to creep in. Men are disposable. Modern dating is broken. Feminism ruined women. Immigrants are destroying the West. It didn't arrive as a manifesto. It arrived as humor, as memes, as offhand comments, as confidence. And here's the thing I have to admit. I understand why a 22-year-old boy would stay on that feed. It's stimulating. Sexy cars, expensive lifestyle, extreme sports, beautiful women, men speaking with certainty. The energy is decisive, it's clear, it's high dopamine. And wrapped around all of that is a subtle narrative that says, the world is against you, so hustle harder. Take what you want: money, girls, cars, status. If you don't dominate, you will be dominated. And that message is intoxicating if you're young and uncertain. Underneath the dominance, I started seeing something else: insecurity. Height jokes weren't random. Gym transformation videos weren't random. The men are disposable narratives weren't random. It was like the algorithm was tapping directly into men's fear of being purposeless, obsolete, unlovable, unfuckable, and then selling a solution. Feel small? get bigger. Feel rejected? Get richer. Feel ignored? Get louder. Feel powerless? Get dominant. And that's a very profitable loop. Because a satisfied man closes the app, but a restless one keeps scrolling, keeps buying, keeps running on that hamster wheel. What disturbed me just as much as what I saw was what I didn't see. I didn't see emotionally intelligent men. I didn't see healthy fathers. I didn't see secure masculinity that didn't require ownership over women. I didn't see therapy or spiritual depth or men doing hard inner work. I didn't see women as educators or thinkers or philosophers or leaders. Women were purely aesthetic, or they were a warning, or they were a joke. They were never intelligent, spiritual, expansive. They were objects of desire or hate only. There was nothing educational. It was aspirational, but only in terms of monetary value. Money, cars, body, sex, domination, stay chasing, stay hungry. There was no version of masculinity that felt calm and integrated. And that absence feels deliberate, even if it isn't consciously so. What also struck me is how gently it drifted toward politics. It didn't start there. It started with sports and gym culture. But then grievance slipped in. Then anti-feminism. Then anti-immigration. Then subtle racist humor framed as truth. Each step was small enough that it didn't feel extreme. And together, it was clearly shaping a worldview. Not through lectures, but through subtle and insidious repetition. Here's the uncomfortable part for me. I thought my feed was normal. I thought most people were engaging with nuance and cultural critique and deeper conversations on power. Boy, was I wrong. They are not. Most people, at least in that demographic, are consuming high stimulation, high aspiration, high grievance content. And that forced me to confront something humbling. I am also living in a constructed environment of my own. I am also being shaped by what I see repeatedly. We all are. We are not debating each other inside one shared information system. We are living in parallel simulations. And then we wonder why we don't understand each other. So, I am not deleting this account. I made it purposefully to study it. I want to see how far it escalates. I want to understand what beliefs are being normalized. I want to understand what pain points are being exploited. I want to understand how masculinity is being framed. I want to understand people who I often don't encounter and hear perspectives I don't get in my feed because I want to grow and expand as a human. And I want to understand the pain points of the supposed opposite side. I'm tired of the them versus us narrative. To be clear, I'm not someone who is politically right or left wing. I would say I'm somewhere in the middle. And even though I lean more left in my perspectives, as some of my friends say, there are times I found myself sided with the right, and those same people who are left-leaning look at me strange. But the truth is, the solution is in the humanity, in the understanding that we all live on this planet together trying to understand the human experience, in the expansion and the holding of multiple truths at once. If we don't understand what young men are being fed, we will keep reacting to the outputs without examining the inputs. And if I'm being honest, as a person who was sex trafficked and worked in that world for a very long time, watching how quickly women become flattened into bodies in that feed isn't crazy to me. Culture trains appetite. Expectations don't appear out of nowhere. But this episode isn't about blaming men. It's about understanding the machine. The algorithm loves engagement, and engagement often comes from arousal, outrage, and polarization, not nuanced information. So the question isn't just, is Instagram radicalizing people? It's also, is it monetizing insecurity? Is it amplifying what's already driving our attention? Is it shaping identity before identity has fully formed? Yes, yes, and yes. But I'm going to keep watching. And I'll tell you who my 22-year-old boy becomes, because right now, he's being programmed. He's being brainwashed. And if we don't examine the code, we'll mistake it for personality. We don't like admitting that. We like thinking we're immune, that we're just observing, that we're smart enough not to be shaped by what we scroll past. But repetition is programming, whether you like it or not. We're not invincible. If you see women as bodies 300 times a week, your nervous system calibrates to that. If you see men framed as disposable 300 times a week, that seeps in. If you see dominance as the only respected form of masculinity, that will become your template. Our brains are malleable. They adapt to pattern. Now, at the end of every episode, I leave you with one tip that you can take with you today. So for 7 days, I want you to audit your inputs. Don't change anything at first, just observe. What themes dominate your feed? Fear, anger, sexualization, wealth, victimhood, superiority, scarcity. Then ask yourself, if I was a 14-year-old version of me and I was consuming this every day, who would I become? That question alone is clarifying. The second step, deliberately engage with one type of content that represents who you actually want to become. So if you want emotional depth, interact with emotionally intelligent men. If you want to integrate masculinity, find it and feed it. If you want women seen as thinkers, engage with women who are thinkers. The algorithm learns quickly. What you don't like, scroll past really quickly. What you do want, stay on it for longer. Within days, your feed will shift, which means your exposure shifts, which means your internal reinforcement shifts. You cannot control the entire internet, but you can steer your input stream. And that's Human OS 101, conscious inputs. Because identity is not just who you think you are, it's what you repeatedly consume. Now, I'm not necessarily anti-Instagram, well, maybe a little bit, but I'm on there. And now with several accounts, I am, however, anti-unconscious programming. We should understand what's shaping us and what's shaping the youth. Because if you don't consciously curate your inputs, someone else will. And they are optimizing for your engagement, for your money, not for your integrity. So I'll keep you updated on my boy. But in the meantime, audit your feed. You might discover that you're living in a simulation you didn't even realize you installed, and that you might not even really like. Thanks for tuning in to the Human OS. Like, comment, and share it with someone who is likely doom scrolling. My name is STORRY, and I'll see you in the next episode.